After canceling the Keystone Pipeline and challenging Line 5 in the United States, the United States finds itself in the same boat that Canada is in, soaring fuel prices as winter sets in. To deal with this lack of fuel and inflation, Biden has begged human rights-abusing oil cartel countries to increase their oil production. Will the Prime Minister admit that his delays, obstruction, and lack of ability to get energy infrastructure built in Canada has led to massive fuel inflation and has Canadians paying a lot for energy from climate-destroying countries?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, after years of a Conservative government that was focused on drill, baby, drill, but unable to get pipelines built, we actually are the government that is getting TMX built to access new markets for our oil resources. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that we need to reduce our carbon emissions and invest in the oil workers in Alberta and elsewhere so we can transform our energy mix to be more lower carbon, to reach net zero, and to support good jobs. The Conservative Party is stuck in their failed past while we look to the future.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, most Canadians don't have the luxury of the Prime Minister's privileged futures. Nobody's going to magically buy them an electric vehicle in the next couple of weeks. Nobody's going to magically build them an LRT in the next couple of weeks. They are struggling to pay their fuel costs now. And this Prime Minister has failed to provide them with low-cost carbon alternatives, and his lack of action on energy infrastructure has driven up prices. The Americans are releasing oil from their strategic energy reserve in order to bring prices down. We don't have one here. Can the Prime Minister tell us what Canada's plan is to lower fuel costs?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our plan from the beginning of this pandemic has been to have Canadians' backs now and into the future. And that's exactly what we're doing, not only by supporting them now with initiatives that are making life more affordable, but as well as recognizing that the direction our world is going in is towards lower carbon emissions, and therefore our investments in clean technology, our investments in renewables, our investment in fighting climate change is what's going to guarantee a better present and future for all Canadians.
Honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
What the Prime Minister just said is that he has spent Canada into oblivion to make our prices higher for consumers. That's insane. Come on. Right now, Canadians are struggling to pay for gas. They don't have the ability to magically buy an electric car. We need to get fuel prices under control. Last year, he voted against a bill to reduce fuel price costs for farmers. Can the Prime Minister tell Canadians what he is going to materially do after failing to build pipelines to lower fuel costs?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, after a decade of Conservative failure on pipelines, we've actually invested in the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion, and we're taking the profits from that pipeline to invest in the green transformation of our economy.
I'm going to have to interrupt the Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'm having a hard time hearing his answer. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It is unbelievable to hear the Conservatives continuing to double down in their anti-climate change agenda, their oil and gas lobbying efforts to try and hold Canadians in the past instead of recognizing that supporting them right now with a price on pollution that puts more money in the pockets of Canadians than before and moves forward into the future is the right.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Somebody in Papineau who's struggling to pay for a tank of gas is not an oil and gas lobbyist. It's one of his constituents. And he owes it to them to not only provide low-carbon alternatives that he's failed to provide, but also to reduce their fuel costs. He's failed on all these fronts. He's failed to buy energy infrastructure. He's perfectly fine to have that tank of gas come in from Saudi Arabia, where women aren't seen as people. He should have a plan that sees both Canadian energy, lower the cost of fuel, and ensure that we have climate action. And he's failed on both fronts. Why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, what the Conservatives continue to fail to understand is you don't have a plan for the future of our economy if you don't have a plan for the future of our environment to fight climate change. And that is exactly what we have led on, including with a price on pollution that returns more money to the average Canadian family than the price costs them in a given year. On top of that, we're moving forward with real supports for families and for communities as we challenge the rising price of goods. That is what we're continuing to do. And as we finish with this pandemic for good, we need to keep focused on the things that matter for Canadians.